to the Business of Apps podcast. We invite app industry professionals to cover various topics. We promise to do our best to keep it both insightful and brief. In this episode, we have Nicoline Strøm-Jensen, Head of Product Management at Adjust. Nicoline, welcome to the Business of Apps podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Terrific. It's great to see you. All right, we're going to move forward with setting the stage first. Last year, we celebrated the 15th anniversary of the App Store and Google Play. If you've been part of the app industry for all these years, you saw the sea of change in app marketing. We all remember the exponential growth of both stores and the moment when they hit the ceiling. We witnessed the rise of freemium and subscription models, introduction of App Store optimization, and the burst on the scene of Pokémon Go, for Christ's sake. And then, all of a sudden, it turned out that for all these years, the industry had been missing one crucial component: the app user's privacy. So, it's been more than 3 years since Apple introduced its ATT framework. And of course, GDPR fundamentally changed the user data collection and digital advertising. Today we have Nicoline to talk about what it takes to achieve app marketing success in the privacy-centric era. Nicoline, before diving into today's topic, what is your background?
Yeah, so I have a little bit of an interesting background. I actually, before entering the tech industry, I completed my master's in art history. So very different, but I definitely use some of my skill sets from that in my day-to-day, surprisingly enough. But I entered, after I finished my master's, I decided that I wanted to go into a dynamic industry, and tech kind of fit that bill, right? I like the challenge of it. I like the constant change. And so what I did, which was a little over 11 years ago, I took an immersive course in product management. And after that course, I was lucky enough to open the door to tech by becoming an account analyst and sales planner at Microsoft. So I had some through friends, I had some good connections, so I got very, very lucky there. And after the Microsoft, AOL, Yahoo acquisition time, then I was briefly at AOL as an account manager, and then I moved on to ironSource. And if you're up in the industry, ironSource is now a part of Unity, a network. And I got my feet wet more in the app world. So it was focused on apps and as an app network at ironSource. And then I moved to Adjust. So I've been at Adjust for a little over 6.5 years. And this has been a very interesting ride. I've had many different roles. Technical account manager is where I started, and then I evolved into my head of program management. So what's interesting about working at a mobile measurement partner, so an MMP, is that though there is a heavy focus on apps and specific app installs, that's kind of how MMP started, with the evolving industry and wanting to be able to measure more campaigns, not just focused on app. We have also expanded into web and CTV, PC, console, and I think we'll talk today about some more expansion in other tools as we dive into the privacy topic. And so it's been an interesting ride. I've worked with lots of different platforms, managing processes. What I do now is a lot about process and improving efficiency and communications between different departments and functions. So it's been an exciting ride to this point.
Indeed, it's been a really exciting one. And I love the intersection of art and technology, as Apple loves it.
Yes.
That's a really great mix. I'm not sure why, but I always find people in the tech with the background in art having wider, more thoughtful perspective on what they do in technology. It's a great mix. I love it.
Yes, that is exactly how I also interpret it. I definitely, working with the UX designers, thinking about how our users leverage our platform. There's a lot of creativity, and understanding that perspective is something that I bring in from thinking about how people interact with art, because our technology is certainly an aspect, it's an art form, and how we interact with it day to day, and what's intuitive and what isn't, is a very much a part of that.
Absolutely. We human beings love to put things into boxes, to categorize stuff, but it's the same thing. Those boxes and borders are artificial. So yeah, part and technology, it's the same thing. Both being developed by the same brains, human
Yes.
beings.
Absolutely.
Okay, now, what are the biggest obstacles marketers face today in the privacy first landscape? And how can they overcome them to drive success?
So the first thing I want to mention is, I feel like I call it kind of the buzzword in this realm when it comes to privacy first, is signal loss. So signal loss is what makes and has been making marketers the most nervous, because in practical terms, this references device identifiers, and device identifiers were the key granularity of data that marketers, prior to the push for privacy focus, was what they used to efficiently target their user segments with personalized ads and promos. But even as an aspect of that and higher level, was just to understand where their marketing dollars were bringing in the best return. And this signal loss is from either the device identifiers being obfuscated in some way, or more known to the wider audience is that we are being prompted to give consent or to deny the use of our device IDs in advertising and other, there's even other categories that apply. So this signal loss removes that granularity, and this is where marketers have been challenged in the past 3 years. Like you said, the ATT framework came out. Privacy was a topic prior to that. You mentioned GDPR. So these things have been in people's minds, but more in the back of people's minds. It wasn't affecting things as much as it is now with the introduction of the ATT framework and SCAD network being a part of that. So the questions came up of, well, what do we do now? How do we measure effectively? How do we optimize? How do we reach the right segments? And obviously that has been a concern, and over the past 3 years, the industry has been working together, and this is something that I've talked about in different conferences or just with clients, that's a one aspect that I've enjoyed is we can, when I entered this industry, it can be rather competitive, and and then we had this moment of, okay, we got to work together. We've got these different components, and we're not going to be able to all see success without that collaboration. And so going from that, the conversations that I have with clients are first and foremost, all right, I'm sorry, but we have to let go of the past. And people have become a little bit more okay with that. In the beginning, it was a rather controversial statement. Many clients were trying to find workarounds and say, oh, but can't we do this? And oh, I just want to do it this way. And though some of that was possible, I never advised it, because it's to their advantage to be forward thinking. And I know in the beginning, people were a little skeptical, is SCAD network here to stay? How far is Apple going to take it? What's Google's stance going to be? And all of that. And you really, like I was saying earlier, you have to get everyone involved to make it work. So there was a little bit of, well, I'm going to wait and see. That's totally understandable, but I think 3 years in, we know it's, it's here to stay. Our users of apps are, this is top of mind for them. I have my various opinions of what's actually, privacy intended and what's a little bit of malarkey, but that's a whole nother podcast. So yeah, moving away from looking at workarounds, my advice is definitely, we've seen a shift with scan. That's, I think, evident. And of course, soon to come, the ad kit, ad attribution kit, what I'm referring to as ad kit. But I encourage clients not to fully turn away from it because it's still valid. There's still campaigns that are in that realm, and that's still data that you are getting or you can get, right? So I definitely encourage clients to think about setting that up and, being considerate about how they're setting up their conversion values. So my advice around that is definitely know what data is most important. We aren't in a world where you can have every single data point, every activity from your app and what your users are doing, but what is the most important? What is that signal that helps you make an informed decision? And focus on setting up your conversion values in that way. Then moving on, the last thing I'll say in this, and we'll probably get into it with your later questions, is now we have the dawn, and again, all the conferences, and I've seen so many articles, over the past year at least, definitely before that, but it's become much more prominent in everyone's minds, is I've heard terms like marketing trifecta or the three-pronged approach to marketing, and this refers to 3 different kinds of measurement and tooling. And the first is traditional measurement attribution, what everyone is used to and has, primarily what MMPs deliver, like Adjust. But then adding to it incrementality and marketing mixed modeling. And so when looking at that, you kind of have your more real time with the attribution. Then you have incrementality tests, which are kind of your midterm testing and gleaning information from that and being able to make decisions. And then the marketing mix modeling, which I'll just say MMM from this point, it's easier. That is a longer term type of modeling, right? So you're looking at every phase of your campaigns and getting the data that is what people worry about is being lost with signal loss. And the last thing I'll throw in, and I think this is combined with the attribution part, is, at Adjust, we're also looking into and have been developing prediction metrics. So I feel like this is a cherry on top of the traditional attribution if you want to keep to the trifecta or the three-pronged concept. So definitely looking at predictive metrics, incrementality, MMM, kind of those are the new topics.
Just a quick tangent. We recently at Business of Apps published a guide about MMM, marketing mix modeling. I can tell you from first-hand experience that putting together this guide gave me a really good sense of appreciation how complex and effective this approach is.
Yes, I absolutely agree, and I did see that article. So nice job on that one.
Thank you, Nicoline. Now, from what you're saying, I'm getting that comparing to 2021, life of app marketers are getting a little bit easier as time goes by, right? So one of the unintended consequences is that now everybody have this feeling we're in the same boat. So how can marketers determine the most effective strategies for measuring and optimizing their campaigns in today's privacy-focused environment?
Yeah, so we definitely are in the same boat. I think that's a good way, and even with the the pandemic that already started us thinking as, okay, we're all in this together. And looking at effective strategies, I think definitely getting into more of that three-pronged approach. And sometimes I've been referring to it as, these new tools, but they're not new. Marketing mix modeling, the MMM has been around for a very long time. And the concept of incrementality has been around for a very long time, and predictive analysis and these ideas have also been around. But what's different about this moment, I think, and over the past year for sure, is the convergence of the signal loss and folks understanding that, we do have to let go of the past, and what can we do with what we have, has moved us into really honing in on these concepts. And that also, combined with the recent advancements and accessibility to AI, machine learning tooling, all of that being a little bit easier to the masses, so to speak, has also enhanced that technology and made it more accessible to different companies, like Adjust, being able to focus on building out these tools for our clients, amongst other partners that our listeners likely have. And, we see, isn't there that clip of the Google conference where it's just like AI, so that is the hot topic, right? And it is AI that definitely helps us in this tooling. So measuring and optimizing campaigns today definitely looks at these different levels. So like I was saying earlier, you've got the real time, which we still have access to, and that can still be very informative and definitely needs to be part of a marketer's view. Then you have the incrementality component, that is the midterm. So you made a change to a campaign, or you added a campaign, and what is that impact? So you're kind of looking over that, first 7-day impact and seeing, does it increase my installs? Does it cannibalize organic? Does it have a loss? And being able to determine how that impact looks, and then make decisions to optimize or move things differently. So that's kind of the midterm. And then with MMM, looking at those long-term views. So like what you were saying earlier, it takes the wider view of all of your marketing, and it incorporates other elements that are not necessarily part of the traditional mix of what you're measuring today, and making those decisions. So for example, our clients who have a radio campaign, or even billboards, or maybe our clients who have weather affects their app and when people use it. And even an example, a ride sharing app might be dramatically impacted by a huge sporting event. And so being able to see that impact on an influence of those events and things outside of what we would historically be looking at in the app world is huge to the new strategies. And when you think about the signal loss and what our clients and marketers, advertisers were concerned about, is they were trying to, with that granular data, they were looking at, okay, does my channel mix make sense? What's the campaign impact? What is my return on investment? What should my budget planning look like? How do I optimize, etc.? And these are all of the strategies that become more visible if you're using this three-pronged approach or view by incorporating these quote unquote new tools, new to a lot of people, because it has become more accessible. especially something like MMM, which, as you said, can be very complex. You need data scientists. You need all of these things to be able to build it, manage it, and then of course reading it is another thing. So that's where find companies like mine who are building this tooling, and of course many others, that is also remains compliant with the privacy standards. So whether that's using first-party data, especially a lot of it uses just aggregated data. And, I can speak for with our tools, if there is device level data used, it's to inform a model, and the data doesn't go anywhere else, right? So that keeps it compliant to all of these regulations. So with clients, I encourage, or advertisers, marketers who are listening, I encourage you to, do the research, understand, what is MMM, what is the incrementality, what would predictive metrics look like for you, and who of your partners could you collaborate with to start working working with these kinds of tools. And especially with the privacy concerns, it makes sense at this moment in time. There's just been so much rapid growth with these types of tools.
I just want to quickly add that MMM, as I see it, even allows you to get a broader view on your business, to look outside of your box of developing an app, writing code, building a marketing strategy. You're not developing an application for somebody living inside your smartphone. All those people live in a real world with all consequences of things like weather, economy shifts, many things that should be part of the equation, so to speak, in the MMM model. So yeah, I cannot stress enough how it's important to check if you can hire data scientists, as you said, to build an MMM model for your app business. Now, as privacy regulations evolve, what emerging tools and strategies should marketers focus on to stay competitive and compliant?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, definitely stay informed on what regulations are coming out and talk to your partners. Make sure that you have the appropriate legal folks from your company involved to understand how all of these regulations apply to your company. And of course, keep in mind, we often have clients come to us and say, oh, this and this privacy, whether it's this new regulations in certain countries, what are you all doing about that? And of course, we're following along. We know about these regulations, and we make whatever changes and necessary to remain compliant. But also keep in mind, each company is a different piece within the ecosystem. So a company like an MMP, as a data processor, has different compliance components than you as a marketer might have. So make sure that you understand that there still is a distinction. As much as we can be advisors for each other, there is still that important aspect. And then focusing the emerging tools, as we've discussed, something like incrementality. And I will want to be a little bit more specific when thinking about the strategies using those emerging tools. I think one thing is certainly important to understand the difference between some of the tools that are available, right? Because just saying, oh, I want to use an incrementality tool, they're not all the same and have the same methodology. And on the Adjust side, we built our tool with synthetic control groups. So basically, this means that we don't require you to do an A/B test, because sometimes A/B testing can be time consuming. They take a lot of planning, and that's one methodology, and a lot of the incrementality tools still use that. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that, but my point is to consider the advantages and disadvantages of how a particular tool functions, because with the synthetic control group, again, don't have to use an A/B test, But you do have to have a waiting period. If you're starting a new campaign, then you shouldn't make a bunch of other big changes for a period of time to actually be able to see that impact, right? So it still requires some planning, but it's just slightly different than what marketers might be used to from an A/B test. And similarly for an MM tool, they're very different. A few months ago I read an article that distinguished between, there's also a variety of complexity of an MMM tool, right? And so you can get really, really into the weeds of every little aspect of the environment, coming in to give you results that include all of these things beyond whether, including the App Store rankings and any number of other things you can think of from an environment that might impact it, to more simplified versions. And so do your research on when considering if you're going to purchase using a tool, or if you're working with, like you said, if you have a data science internally, kind of what model makes the most sense for you, and how deep you need to go into what you consider as having an impact on your campaign. And like you said earlier, these are humans. They're hopefully not just in their phones. Although I've heard some some interesting stories lately of people just using a lot of their time on their phones. But considering that, considering really who are your users, and what does that profile look like? And so what matters when you're thinking about what your media mix is, and or your marketing mix, and how that has an impact in their activities. And then predictions, just because that's my little throwing it in, I think is really interesting one, because when you think about strategy, a lot of times our clients have, day 7 or day 14 return on investment or return on ad spend metrics that they're trying to optimize towards. And of course, as implied, you don't know that metric until you hit day 7 or day 14. And so having a predictive tool that what we're building, and I can only give an example of what we're doing at Adjust, but we are looking at all of the signals that we get within that first 24 hours of app install, and being able to predict out what is the day 7 revenue, what is the day 14 revenue. So clients can make earlier optimizations based on that predicted value, so they don't have to wait for day 7 to hit or day 14 to hit. So using these models and the AI and machine learning and going back to the concept of, we still have, even with the signal loss, even with the privacy regulations and the privacy-centric industry now, we still have a lot to use. And that's kind of the positive message of today.
Okay, that was actually the final question to tackle the topic of today's conversation. And because it's your first appearance on the podcast, I get to ask a few quick questions to my guest, so we can know you a little bit better. Here they come. What smartphone do you have now? Have you been switching back and forth between iOS and Android, or just staying one side all the time?
So I have a iOS, but I got my first iPhone about 10 years ago. And prior to that, I was on Android, obviously. But yeah, funny is no one in my family is on the iPhone train. And I honestly switched just to try something different. And at the time, a lot of my friends I was living in New York City, and they all had iPhones, and the whole green bubble, blue bubble controversy was a part of it. And actually, a quick note on that, I really struggled to understand the advantage of Apple making it difficult to send just regular text messages, on the regular messaging component of our phones between Android and iOS. I don't understand what that gains. It just makes it frustrating for users. And like I said, because my whole family uses Androids, I just switched to talking to them on WhatsApp. So then I'm just, Apple's like, okay, go to Meta.
Let's briefly take a quick jump into the past. What was your first mobile phone before the era of Androids and iOS phones?
I don't remember the exact name of it, but I always had Samsung phones before I switched. So I was a Samsung fan. In high school, it was just really for emergencies because I started driving, and it was just like a brick of a phone. It wasn't, and I had the little antenna, not one that you moved in and out, but it was just there. I loved it because I gotten the case. I mean, it was just that you could change the kind of face of it, and I had this red dragon, and so I still remember that fondly. I think my second phone was a flip phone. So yeah, but when I moved to New York City back in 2010, it was time for me to get a smartphone so I could have GPS. So then whatever Samsung it was, and I think that's what I used until I switched to the iPhone. But yeah, good memories. I miss that dragon. I gotta look for a new case with the red dragon on it.
Yeah, I definitely remember those days and how important was the actual look of your phone, because there was not many things you can change on the thing,
Right.
but the way it looked was always you can change. Now, back to present. So imagine you left your iPhone at home, you're out for whatever reason, and what would be the most missing feature for you at that point?
Oh, this is always my dream to more frequently be able to leave without a phone. But that is definitely not our reality. Actually, this happened recently. I went out to dinner with my dad and my brother, and I did not have my phone. But I only found out that I didn't have my phone because when we parked, it was, I live in Durham, North Carolina now, and a lot of the parking lots downtown, they have different apps that you use to pay for your parking. It's actually very convenient than the little pay devices that you use. But I already had that app on my phone, and so my brother and my dad said, "Oh, Nicolina, can you take care of this because I don't have this particular parking app?" And I said, "Oh, sure." And I went in my bag and I was like, "Sorry, I can't. I don't have my phone." But yeah, usually I don't make it very far because if I'm driving, I plug it in to listen to music, and actually the first thing I do is I use it to set my house alarm when I walk out the door. So I would know pretty quickly. But yeah, as you learned in the last in the last few sentences, is my phone is very just a utility. I very much, the apps on my phone are just for utility. I mean, I've got some e-commerce stuff on there, but I'm not a game player, which sounds funny because I'm in tech industry. But yeah, I've never been to games. I'm an avid reader, so I use Kindle app on my phone. But yeah, the only games I play are Duolingo, which I don't know if you consider that a game. I try to keep up with my German, and then I do play 2 puzzles on the New York Times app. So that's kind of the extent. Otherwise, my phone is a tool.
I can just shake your hand because I never went farther than Tetris, to be honest. And yeah, I do have Kindle on my iPhone and my iPad, and switching back and forth reading lots of books for the last 10 plus, I believe 15 years. Pretty much for the days when I guess I was reading books even on the iPod Touch, the first model, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, back then, the days when the Kindle app did not exist, was only an iBooks app. Okay. Speaking of utilities and your phone, what technologies do you believe your phone is missing? What will make it a better tool for you?
That's a very good question. What is it missing? Not sure what it's missing. It probably has too much. I think I need, so I'll take the opposite direction. It has too much. I should more regularly remove things from my phone. I still laugh at the phrase, gosh, this probably started many years ago and I haven't really heard it recently, but the comment of there's an app for that. It's just everything has an app now. But yeah, I think I would want more focus on what do we actually need.
Totally hear you, Nicolina. The pendulum went too far in the direction of efficiency. Great, Nicolina. Before I let you go, very, very final question. How can people get in touch with you and get information about what you do?
Yeah, well, I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn because my name is rather unique. So LinkedIn is one way, and then my work email is just my first name, Nicolina. Of course, the challenge is it's spelled with an E at the end instead of an A. But yeah, Nicolina@adjust.com. Super, super straightforward.
Nicolina, thank you so much for coming on our show and sharing your knowledge and experience. It was awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Absolutely.
And that was Nicoline Strøm-Jensen, Head of Program Management at Adjust. To listen to more episodes, subscribe to our podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube podcasts. Just search for Business of Apps. You will find us easily. Remember, we release episodes on Mondays, so subscribe and you'll be able to get new episodes on your smartphone, tablet, or computer as soon as we release them. And please don't forget to leave us a review or comment on iTunes. It is highly appreciated. And all episodes will also be available on businessofapps.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.